So now that we have an emulator set up, we are able to start to work on building our test environment on the actual phone itself. And for this, I'm going to discuss a little bit about how to use ADB to give you a little bit of fundamentals on that. And we'll also take a look at installing a purposefully vulnerable application. Now, the vulnerable applications that I'm going to be using in this, one of them is going to be this one here. It's called Diva. And I'll include these links inside of like a resources section at the end of the course, and that way you'll be able to access all of these links as discussed, and I'll discuss which videos the links are actually utilized in and that sort of thing. Just that way you're able to access them without having to type this out word for word. So once we download this, we'll be able to get an APK, and that APK will be able to be installed on the device. I have another APK, which is Insecure Bank v2, and this is another APK that we'll install. It's another insecure application. Again, I'll place the link for this inside of a resources section in this course so that you're able to get access to that and download the APKs as well. So the very first thing I'm going to discuss is if you're following along on your own Android device and you aren't using an emulator, you're going to first have to enable USB debugging. And to do this, you're going to go into your settings, and you're going to have to get access to the developer tools. To do this, it's a little bit tricky. You have to go into your system, and then you have to go to About, and then you're going to scroll down to Build Number, and you're just going to tap on this until it says you are now a developer. Once this is done, you should now have a developer tools option in your settings. And on this one here, let me restart my settings to make sure that it shows. If you can't find it, you can try like typing it in here. You'll see developer options. It's under system and then developer options in this case. So yeah, under system, and then there should be developer options under advanced. It will be in different locations depending on your device. The easiest way is just to search it in your settings to find the developer settings. So inside of here, you'll be able to get access to a lot of different things that are commonly used by application developers, and a lot of these settings may be useful for you while debugging applications or trying to test them. But the main one that we're interested in right now is USB debugging. You want to make sure that USB debugging is enabled. Enabling this will allow you to access your device through the command line of your computer using the ADB tool. So that's just one thing to note. If you're on like an emulator, you won't actually have to do this step because it comes enabled by default. So from here, we can launch up our command line, and we can take a look at how we can access our device through the command line. So there is a tool called ADB, which is installed typically with Android Studio, and it has a whole bunch of different tools that allow us to sort of manipulate our device and be able to install different APKs, for instance. Querying content providers is another common thing. There's a lot of things that this is very useful for. One of the main things is getting a shell into your device to be able to navigate through it and to download pieces and all that good stuff, right? So if you type in ADB devices, in this case, it just had to kill off the client and then start it again. But you'll see it will give us a list of devices that are currently attached to our computer. So in this case, we have one device, which is the emulator. So if I were to type in now ADB shell, what this will do is it will create a shell into the device itself. So you can see now we have a shell on the device. If I type in something like ls, for instance, it will list the directories. So this is like a classic sort of computer shell, just on a mobile device instead. So this is one thing that's very nice to be able to do with ADB, is to be able to shell onto the device to gather information, for instance, to be able to like find out where an app is installed, or navigate to a specific directory that we're trying to access, or just see data that's on the device. A lot of this you might not have permissions to. If you have a rooted device, you'll be able to escalate yourself to root and get permissions to these aspects. But yeah, typically you won't have permissions to everything. If we're trying to do this as a legitimate user, we typically don't want root because we want to be able to do things that any sort of user would be able to do. So that's one thing that we're able to do with ADB. And if I type in exit, it will take me out of the shell. Now, what I really want to do is I want to install these two APKs that we have downloaded. So one way that we could do this is I'll cd to the directory. And then what I can do is I can type in ADB install, and then I type in the name of the APK. And you'll see it will say performing streamed install and then success. And now you'll see on my device, I should have I have the Diva app available now. So you can see that installed the application for us. And then I can do the same with the Insecure Bank. And you can see that will install the app as well. So that's the main thing that we're looking to do with ADB, is just get these two applications installed. And now that you have these two applications installed, you'll be able to now follow along with all the different tutorials that we do with those two apps. So these two apps, again, have purposefully insecure setups, which will allow us to sort of manipulate through them and attempt to attack them as we would maybe attack a legitimate application. So using these, we'll be able to discuss a bit of like the ideology of attacks and be able to actually practice it on legitimate applications, right? So this will get you set up with all of the things that you need to be able to follow along on the emulator. So from here, we'll be discussing the actual concepts related to Android vulnerability analysis and Android penetration testing.